Greetings and welcome everyone to another episode of the Talent Lab. I am your host, Enrique Washington. With the upcoming Soccer World Cup approaching, millions of people will be preparing to indulge in countless soccer matches, or, if you live in other parts of the world, football matches. Our guest today is an expert in the area of global business leadership, and he's here to talk to us today about how to apply the game of soccer to business leadership. He is the author of the book, The Collaborator, Discovering Soccer as a Metaphor for Business Leadership. He's the former Vice President of Human Resources for Northwest Pipe and is currently a talent management consultant. He is Windsor Jenkins. Windsor, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Enrique. It's nice to be here.
So let's talk about this book, and I want to talk about the impetus for this book. What really motivated you to write this book?
Well, as most people would tell you if they know me, it's a case of understanding that I'm very passionate about soccer. And I grew up with the game of soccer back on the East Coast. And I'm also very passionate about the game of leadership. And I thought back in the mid-2000s that it would be appropriate to try to marry the two games, if you will, leadership with soccer, based on what was happening in the world as I saw it. And that world scene has not changed since the mid-2000s when we talk about the global business model, when we talk about the nature of change. Change, as you well know, is the new norm in today's world. It's now being described as relentless change. And so relentless change, when I think about that relative to soccer, it's one and the same. The game of soccer is a very dynamic game with flow that is continuous, very much like the global business model. And so the need for collaboration as a operating behavior to deal with managing change and to deal with the global business model is apparent, at least to me. And that was the basis for the book back in 2007. As I mentioned in the book, today's highly competitive global business world where technology is empowering organizations to be more responsive to markets as far as speed, for example, and empowering employees on the front line and in the field to make decisions, to take risks, to manage change, and to deal with the customer has become more and more like the game of soccer. And again, that was in 2007 when I wrote that. And if you look at technology in terms of where it stood relative to an IBM survey that is done every year, it's called the C-Suite survey. Back in 2007, I think it was third or fourth in the rankings out of about 9 factors that CEOs, CHROs, CFOs, anybody in the C-Suite identified as important for shaping their business environment. Today, based on the 2013 IBM C-Suite survey, it's ranked number 1. So, technology has not gone away. It's not going to go away with everything that's going on with social media. It's here to stay for sure, and I think it's just going to be a way of finding a place for how to make it fit with collaboration, for example.
So when we talk about a couple things I want to follow up on here. Number one, the survey here, which I find fascinating, how technology has become increasingly more important. Is it your view that technology is seen as an enabler for stronger collaboration?
Oh, absolutely. That's the key, is to use technology as an enabler. And that's what the survey basically points out. To take technology and put it out in front of whatever it is you're trying to do would be the wrong application in my thinking. So it's a case of making sure that you're using it to enable what it is you're trying to get done.
Something else you mentioned, you talk about the flow of the game of soccer. And for those who have watched soccer or football, the clock doesn't stop, very much like in business. The world doesn't stop to account for mistakes or even changes sometimes. So talk a little bit about, the flow of soccer and how this really translates into business and how this is becoming a norm for how we need to work together to grow and build organizations.
Okay. Well, soccer is a continuous sport in the sense that you're playing for two 45-minute periods. And as you mentioned, there's no chance to really stop the clock to deal with issues around substitutions, whatever. The soccer team is really a self-directed unit charged with getting the work done on the field. And that's the collaboration that takes place on the field. And we transfer that over to the global business model, it's the same application. And again, with technology serving as an enabler, it's a case of looking at people, at teams of people, for example. Could be across the country, could be across the globe. But looking at those teams as self-directed units charged with getting the work done. And that's the matchup that I've tried to present in the book.
So this book, The Collaborator, how is this different from other leadership books?
Well, this book is a book that introduces a platform, an operating platform. And the platform is made up of 11 operating principles. These operating principles really are the key pieces of the platform that would allow an organization to have more success achieving collaboration, more success in terms of trying to establish a culture of collaboration, if you will.
So, you talk about these 11 principles in your book, based on the foundation of the game of soccer. Can you explain one? Let's pull one of the principles out and sort of talk about its application to leading to more effective collaboration.
Well, let's talk about the first principle, and I have to say too that these principles are not rank ordered.
Okay.
There's 11; they're all equally weighted, and very much like what you would see on a soccer team, they all have to be in play on the field at the same time in order for the synergies that we're looking for to come into play. And when you combine all 11 operating principles, I like to describe it as the collaboration code for
I like that.
For managing business. And it's a case of looking at what happens on a soccer field. If one player doesn't play, or if one player is missing, for example, which could be the case in that game, if somebody got a red card or got a couple of yellow cards or whatever, the team would be, they'd be at a disadvantage. So it's really, again, important to look at these 11 operating principles as a collective experience. And so if we talk about focus on team as the first operating principle, it's really a case of reinforcing the idea that team performance outweighs individual performance. And that's a major shift in this country and perhaps many countries when you talk about holding people accountable for results. In this country, we've all grown up under a regimen of getting recognized for individual accomplishments, whether it's dealing with the classroom or any other application you can think of. It's the whole team experience has really been missing for the most part. And so this idea of focusing on team, not position, is really important. Again, it plays into what we've talked about already as far as the need for the team, the global business team or the soccer team, to function as a self-directed unit charged with performing the work needing to be done. It's people in the field making the best decisions, the quickest decisions, those kind of things, without interference from an organization's leadership that might slow it down. if you will.
Let's talk for a moment about leadership in and of itself. And there are lots of different leadership models that are out there. And I want to focus on traditional leadership models. My question is, do these traditional leadership models support the need for collaboration?
Well, that's a good question. Many people would say no. In fact, one of the people that I follow in my studies is Gary Hamel, who's out of the London School of Business. He's considered one of the better strategic thinkers in the world today. And he recently said, I saw online recently that he was saying that traditional pyramidal structures really demand too much of too few. There aren't enough leaders to go around, for example, and that organizations need to find a new platform for managing change. He also says that, organizations need to find a way to syndicate the work of leaders or leadership across organizations. And again, that plays into the soccer metaphor because, again, those 11 players on the field, in my mind, are all leaders. And that's one of the operating principles that is described in the book, where we talk about developing partners on the field. That's really about acknowledging that those 11 folks on the field, those 11 players on the field are, in fact, leaders.
Right. Now, that makes sense. So if that, with that being said, let's discuss the need for developing new models and, this new platform for managing change.